Mr. Scott. A letter just arrived for you by special messenger.
Oh. You go on in, Dan. I'll be along in a moment.
And it's apparent wherever you look. Primitive, unlettered people with barbaric manners. No idea how to serve food. No appreciation of wine or clothes or... Now, there's an excellent example of what I'm speaking about. The perfect primitive. No knowledge of the finer things in life and no desire to learn about them. He lives in the wilderness by his wits, like an animal.
Young man. Living in the wilderness does one thing for you. It sharpens your sense of hearing, like an animal.
I'm so sorry. I had no intention of offending you, I can assure you.
Oh, you're here. Good. Dan, I'd like you to meet my son, David.
I already have, in a manner of speaking.
I see. Well, there's no sense putting it off any longer. This is the favor, Dan. I want you to take him.
Take him?
To live with you in Boonesboro.
Well, I said there wasn't anything I wouldn't do for you that you asked, and I meant what I said.
And I said I wouldn't hold you to it. So you turn me down and I'll understand.
Doesn't David have anything to say about this?
Oh, of course. I am of age. I wouldn't be here if I hadn't agreed.
You realize, of course, you'll be living in the wilderness with us primitives, with none of the finer things. I'm not trying to get out of anything. I just think David ought to know what he's getting into.
Methinks you doth protest too much, Mr. Boone.
I see. Well, then I reckon that settles it, doesn't it?
Daniel Boone was a man, yes, a big man, with an eye like an eagle and as tall as a mountain was he. Daniel Boone was a man, yes, a big man. He was brave, he was fearless, and as tough as a mighty old tree. From the coonskin cap on the top of old Dan to the heel of his rawhide shoe, the rippin'est, roaring'est, fighting'est man the frontier ever knew. Daniel Boone was a man, yes, a big man, and he fought for America to make all Americans free. What a Boone wanted to do and what a clean thumber trooper was he.
Well, now that it's all settled, Bill, do you mind telling me why you wanted David to come and live with you?
Now that it's all settled, no. David, as you can see, is a fop. An overeducated dandy who's never had to earn a dollar in his life.
Forgive me, Father, but it's not possible to be overeducated.
On the contrary, you're the living proof that it's quite possible for a man to spend so much of his time becoming overeducated in useless things that he's had no chance to learn any useful ones. He's never had to raise a blister on his hand or a drop of sweat on his brow from honest labor.
You were the one who suggested I go to Europe to get the best education possible. You even chose the schools.
That's true, but
And I made the most of it. I had no opportunity for honest labor, and I didn't need it then or now. Mr. Boone, in my opinion, this whole idea is a scandalous waste of time, yours and mine.
But he has agreed to humor me.
Have you any notion in particular of what you want him to learn?
Yes. I want him to earn the things he now takes so lightly for granted. I want him to learn what it's like to bend his back over a pick and shovel, to fell trees and cut and shape them for a house, to walk a 60-mile trap line in rain and snow, to shoot his food and skin it for the clothes on his back. I want him to learn what life is all about.
Yes, but you see, Father, that is not what my life is going to be about. I don't intend to ignore 12 years of education. I mean to use them.
Well, I think your father has a point, David. I think maybe your education could stand a little filling out.
There is nothing that cannot be learned from books, Mr. Boone.
Well, now, I doubt that. I don't think you could find any book that says that.
Besides, this conversation is quite academic. I have agreed to give up several months just to keep my father happy.
Do you think that's long enough, Dan?
Well, you can learn a lot in a short time if you want to, and nothing in a long time. I think it's up to David.
Oh, no, Mr. Boone, it's up to you. You see, I am just an empty vessel waiting for you to pour some of your precious knowledge into me. I even intend to humor you, within reason. Unfortunately for me, of course, I shan't be seeing such delightful creatures as you two where I'm going.
We'll miss you.
Don't be gone too long.
Well, I'll try very hard. I assure you that I'll
Well,
be...
he seems ready for the frontier.
Seems pretty well set up for a young man who spent the last 12 years living the life of a gentleman.
Dan, I don't want you to hold back. Treat him as you would any other young man. And don't be afraid to, well, make it as difficult as you think necessary.
Within reason.
Of course, I leave that up to you. He's made of good stuff, I'm sure of it.
Mr. Boone, if you're ready, I'm sure I am.
Well, what is that?
Paints, brushes, canvas, sketch pads, and charcoal.
David fancies himself an artist.
Correction, Father. I am an artist, and a very good one.
Well, I'm sure you are, David, but, well, we've got a long trek in front of us, and since you're new to the frontier, you may just find it difficult to propel yourself.
Mr. Boone, I agreed to subject myself to this puberty rite to prove my manhood according to my father's antediluvian notions. But I did not agree to waste all of my time. I will not forego my art, not even for 2 months, and nothing that you can say or do will force me to do so.
All right. There's some things a man has to learn the hard way.
Oh, my badge of courage and virility?
Well, you might find that it might come in handy before we get to where we're going. See you in about 2 months.
Without fail. Goodbye, son. Dan Boone's the best man I know. Follow his lead and you can't go wrong.
I follow my own lead, Father, and I haven't gone wrong yet. Why are we stopping?
Get a chance to catch your breath.
Oh, no. We'll carry on until you're ready to rest. Now, why are we stopping?
Because I'm ready for a breather and a little food.
Taking pity on the tenderfoot? You've been choosing the most difficult route possible, haven't you?
And the shortest.
Trying to break my spirit? Make me more tractable to training as they do with wild horses?
Oh, not exactly. But you gotta get blisters before you can grow calluses. Sometimes the hardest way is the easiest way in the long run.
Now tell me, Mr. Boone, is that part of your homespun philosophy?
That's what you want to call it, but it's a fact. David?
I'd heard that you pioneers sometimes eat horse meat, but I didn't know you ate the harness too. It's horrible.
Well, you may not like it, but it's nourishing. We can't afford to shoot any fresh meat as long as we're in Shawnee country.
That's very amusing, Mr. Boone. You know, you needn't try to inflame my imagination with fantasies of all the dangers lurking ahead of me in the wilderness. I've made my commitment to study before the feet of the Aristotle of the frontier, and I intend to live up to it, without any of your childish attempts to frighten me.
You sure used a lot of words, David.
I'm so sorry. Are you having difficulty following my conversation?
No. No, I'm getting the general idea. I sure would hate to have you holler help for me, though, if I was drowning.
Well, then I'll make it very simple for you. I don't believe that there's an Indian within 100 miles of here.
Takes in a lot of territory.
You'd still have me believe that we're in danger, wouldn't you, Mr. Boone? Well, I'm bored with your childish pretense. I've had enough of it.
Well, you're entitled, David. You're pretty good at humoring people, so just for now, why don't you humor me? And let's haul out of here.
your trap line.
It's been part of every year in that valley.
The site of my voyage backward in time, to find the skills made obsolete by the advance of civilization.
It's a good thing some of us still know how to trap. Otherwise, how would you civilize folk by your furs?
Touché, Mr. Boone.
I admit to being curious, David.
About why I agreed to subject myself to this nonsense?
Since you seem to feel that way about it.
Well, perhaps I don't want to be cut out of my father's will. You see, he's become a very rich man.
That had crossed my mind, but I don't think that's the real reason.
All right. It's rather simple, really. My father's been very good to me. And although he's a little misguided in this, he means well.
Misguided? You think you're smart enough to pass judgment on him?
He's still rather a child, isn't he?
Is he?
Well, now, does a mature man still cling to romantic notions of his youth?
Bill Scott is as much a man as I've ever known. And what he remembers and wants for you is an appreciation of life that can only be learned by experience. And speaking of experience, I better teach you how to use that rifle. You see this pine cone? It could save your life. Did I say I was going to teach you how to shoot?
Ah, you see, I forgot to tell you, Mr. Boone, I attended Sandhurst for a while. Oh, now, in case you're not familiar with it...
It's a military college. Now, is there anything else you forgot to tell me?
Mr. Boone, I'm afraid I haven't been quite honest with you. You see, when my father first proposed this wild experiment, I decided that I would shorten my apprenticeship by doing some research. Now, I will grant you, there aren't many textbooks available on trapping beaver, hunting bear, building cabins, and other skills related to a wilderness. But I must confess that I have managed to digest the ones that I could find quite thoroughly. And I think that you will find me very knowledgeable on any project that we might decide to undertake.
That's very interesting, David.
Thank you. Of course, I realize it does sound a bit smug, doesn't it? But, well, look, I could give you a pointer on the way. I mean, there's nothing like practical experience, now is there?
Well, it does come in handy now and then.
What is it?
Shawnee, I reckon.
Oh, Mr. Boone, I don't see any Indians.
Come on, David.
Mr. Boone, aren't you being a bit ridiculous?
This is no time to stand around and argue.
Now, Mr. Boone, I think this is one of your backward jokes.
It is not a joke.
And I don't intend to be a victim of it.
David.
They passed here. Short time ago. Are there tracks on the shore? The trail leads to the water. You go downriver. We'll go upriver.
Quietly. Let him get out of earshot.
He's magnificent. A most impressive specimen. Do you think he'd pose for me?
Long knife? Well, he might trade you even a little of his time for your scalp.
Well, if they're on the warpath, why did they have a woman with them?
Long Knife happens to be the son of a Shawnee chief. When he left his father's tribe, he left with a handful of followers. Might be he's looking for a new place to light.
Well, what did they disagree about?
About killing palefaces. The old chief was dead set against him.
Mr. Boone. Well, I think I owe you an apology. About the Indians, I mean.
Well, I reckon that makes us even. I owe you one for hitting you, but there wasn't any time to argue.
Well, under the circumstances, I accept.
Let's go.
You forgive a rather obvious question, Mr. Boone. I mean, a very short time ago, we were running for our very lives from angry savages, and yet now you sit terribly calmly, build an enormous fire, and cook some fish. Well, I mean, is there some sort of an unspoken truce that takes effect at sundown?
That's pretty good, David. But that's not exactly the way it is.
A human sanctuary? How curious.
Well, you see, Long Knife's father's a chief, and he owns this land. And they had a falling out, and Long Knife swore never to set foot in this territory again.
Could you draw me a map of it?
Well, not even a good artist could do that. Here, let's see. That's done.
Thank you. I've tasted trout in the finest restaurants in London, Paris, and Switzerland. It never tasted like this before.
Well, catching it yourself adds a special flavor.
That and eating out in the open. I defer to you on one thing, Mr. Boone. There are things that cannot be learned from books.
Well, I reckon it would be hard to write down the taste of fresh-caught trout.
I must confess that, despite my preconceived conclusions, I admire you, Mr. Boone. That is, of course, in the way that you relate to your environment, limited though it is. But I don't understand why a man of your obvious capabilities would choose to spend his life in this wilderness.
Well, that's just another difference of opinion, David. I never considered spending my life out here a waste.
Man against the elements, the primordial battle for survival, that's a rather limited use of the abilities God gave us, surely.
Not against, David. Learning to live with nature, to make the most of what God has given us.
Well, of course, if you prefer to use it in those terms. But the very fact that it can all be learned in a matter of a few weeks doesn't add up to much of a challenge, does it?
Well, I'm still learning, but then, of course, I never had any chance to read those fancy books of yours.
Well, you pick up a few minor things, nothing very important. But, you see, I've learned enough since I've been out here, Mr. Boone, to be able to exist on my own if I so choose.
Aren't you forgetting all you knew before you got here?
Well, they help, of course. But what I'm really speaking of is the practical application of that knowledge.
I haven't seen any demonstrations of that yet.
Ah, but you're my instructor. I'm here to learn from you, remember?
Oh, in other words, you didn't want to show me up.
Putting it rather bluntly, but yes, you're right.
You know, David, I've known a couple of young cubs like you, and they've all had real outsized opinions of themselves. But compared to you, they've all been shy and retiring.
I hate false modesty, Mr. Boone.
I'm surprised you even know how to pronounce it.
And if I were a betting man, I'd place a sizable wager that I could reach Boonesboro from here all on my own, even though I've never been there before.
If I weren't a friend of your father's, I'd take you up on that.
You'd lose the bet.
I doubt it. And you'd be apt to lose your life.
Mr. Boone, that sounds like a challenge.
No, just friendly advice,
A word to the wise.
which the wise would heed. David. David, are you all right?
Oh, my stomach.
I know, you've been poisoned. Here, chew these. Chew them. Chew them up. Swallow it. How do you feel?
It's all the same to you. I think I'd like to die. Right here.
You almost did.
Aren't you going to say I told you so?
No, I figure you feel bad enough already. We've got to keep moving. Your nighttime navigating took us right back into Long Knife's territory, and he just might have picked up our trail again.
Mr. Boone, I don't know how much help I'm going to be, I'm afraid.
Well, it doesn't matter. Just don't try using that gun. Welcome to our camp, Long Knife. I've been sort of expecting.
I have a difficult trail to follow.
They're not quite difficult enough. But now that you've found us, what can I do for you?
This your friend?
He's the son of a friend.
That's my picture. How did he get it?
Expect we found it wherever you left it.
Did you make that drawing?
Yes, I did.
Good. You come with us.
Beg your pardon?
You will come with us.
What do they want with me?
I don't know, but I wouldn't put up too much of a fight.
Oh, this is ridiculous. They can't just abduct me like this.
Long Knife, the son of my friend, and I came in peace.
Boone, don't make me shed your blood. A tribal artist has died. I need someone to take his place. I need someone to paint the signs when we bury our dead.
I see. Without these things, your braves grow restless. Think of rejoining your father's tribe.
This will not happen. He will come with us. He'll be one of us.
Oh, now, just a minute.
Long Knife, you just can't force a man to become a member of your tribe.
We have ways.
But I'm responsible for him. I can't let you take him.
I've brought a woman who's agreed to be given in trade for the good of our people.
I have a woman, Long Knife. You know that.
Use her as a slave for the father of this one. She will untie you when the sun goes down. Do not follow, Boone, or you will die.
Mr. Boone, you cannot allow this to happen.
I don't seem to have much to say about it.
Well, contact my father. Perhaps he can...
I'll do that. But don't you do anything foolish. Have patience. Do you understand that, David?
I think I do.
you can go back to your own people.
I cannot. I belong to you.
Nobody belongs to anybody. No offense intended.
But I cannot go back. I've been given in trade. It's a matter of honor for me and for Longknife.
You've got a point. You are my slave. You gotta do what I tell you. Fine. You come along with me.
You may rest now.
Ah, is the painting finished?
Oh, no, it will require several more sittings.
You have great magic in your brush.
It's not a question of magic, it's a question of being taught, a question of training.
Where did you learn such magic?
In a school, across the ocean.
The ocean?
Across the big water. Far from here. Yes, well, anyway, that's where I learned to paint.
This painting gives me strong medicine. Stronger than that of my father. I will become the chief of all the Shawnee.
Oh, I think you're attaching a little more power to this painting than really exists.
When this painting is done, you will teach me the magic.
Oh, I'm afraid I can't stay that long.
You will stay. You will become a blood brother to the Shawnee. My people will become your people.
Now, I'm sure you intend that as a great compliment, and I am deeply flattered. But I don't really think I'm worthy of such an honor. And the plain truth of the matter is, I have no desire to become your brother.
To become a Shawnee is a great honor.
Oh, I'm sure it is, only...
You dare to insult our ancestors?
No, I don't wish to insult.
You paint again.
Yes.
You'd like to rejoin your people, wouldn't you?
I cannot.
The way things stand, you belong to me. And as long as you belong to me, you'll obey me. Do you understand?
Yes.
Come along with me.
Good.
Ah, you're tired of holding that pose? Then we shall finish the painting tomorrow.
Now you become one of us.
What?
Ready for the ceremony.
Why don't we just finish the painting?
You know, since Longknife figures that you're a fair trade for David, I think it's only right that David's a fair trade for you.
I don't understand.
I just wouldn't want Longknife to come to the conclusion that you'd gone along with me in this.
I have read several books about the more common Indian rituals. Am I permitted to ask which one of these I'm to be subjected to? Is it the hot knives or the rawhide thongs?
You'll learn for yourself. This is a test of your manhood, your fitness to become a blood brother.
Look, you don't understand. I don't wish to insult you, but...
If you don't choose to be our brother, you choose to be our enemy.
What if I don't measure up? Supposing I'm not strong enough, not brave enough to survive the ceremony?
That would be very bad.
Tell me, is it a customary part of your ceremony to be tied up like this? Does it not question a man's courage?
Soon you'll be untied to run the gauntlet.
Run the gauntlet?
It's our first ritual. Since there's but 8 of us, you will be allowed to run it twice. Drink.
What is it?
It's the wine of courage.
Yes, but what's in it?
Oh, many things. Many special things. Now drink. Prepare yourself now. The ceremony will begin.
Magnificent tactics, Mr. Boone.
Let's get out of here.
Won't they follow us if we run?
They'll kill us if we stay here.
Mr. Boone! Mr. Boone!
Save your breath and run. There's a river just up ahead.
Mr. Boone, it's my paints.
Your paint?
Yes. I left them at Long Night's camp. I must go back for them.
Are they worth risking your life for?
Well, we can take another route back, but I've got to have them.
You don't understand. If they catch you again, they're going to kill you. And what's more important, they're going to kill me, too.
Mr. Boone, I'm sorry. I must have my paints.
David.
Mr. Boone, you struck me. Again.
That's right, I did, again.
All right, sir. This time, I insist on satisfaction.
Listen, I'll give you your chance, but this is not the time or place. Long Knife's behind us, and if we fight here, he's the only one that's going to get any satisfaction out of it.
Very well. I will await a more propitious time.
Well, I'm sure glad to hear that. Now, let's get out of here. Stay here. Now it's your turn.
My turn for what?
You set a tracks up in the grass like I did.
Oh, look, why don't I just hide somewhere and perhaps you could lead them away?
Now, wait a minute.
It's not that I want to make you the quarry for my own safety. I don't want to see you killed on my account. Besides, you can outdistance them alone.
Well, you do like I asked. Don't you think Long Knife can tell the difference between two sets of tracks and one?
Yes, I should have thought of that.
Now step exactly back in your tracks and keep your weight on your heels so it looked like you were going forward.
Rather tricky, isn't it? It's very convincing, though. Do you think Long Knife will be taken in by the deception?
Better hope so. Come on.
I left the water here. Tracks lead up to the dry grass. Boone is smart. He knows that I swore never to set foot on my father's land again. He'll take refuge there.
Your father's land right there.
You four go this way, the rest will go this way. We'll search for him across the water. Boone is like the fox. You lead the hunt one way, then go another. Go now, we waste time.
Mr. Boone. How much further do we have to go?
Too far if we're going to travel at this pace. Long Knife's a lot smarter than I gave him credit for. He's following us like a hound after a raccoon. But at least there's only 4 of them. That gives us a chance.
A chance?
Sooner or later, they're going to catch up with us. So we'll pick the time and the place.
Thank you, David, for saving my scalp.
Well, that works both ways, doesn't it? Now, if you'll let me have your knife.
What do you want with my knife?
Well, we're going to scalp them, aren't we?
Don't tell me you've read a book on how to lift a scalp.
Yes, I did, and it gave very explicit directions. You see, you hold the forelock of the victim with your left hand, and you make an incision just at the hairline on the forehead.
Well, David, don't you think we could just tie him up somehow? It won't hold him for long, but it'll be long enough to get out of here.
Oh. Well, I suppose that decision's up to you, Mr. Boone. But I must tell you, I'm very disappointed in you. Mr. Boone, aren't we traveling in the wrong direction?
Well, we have been for several hours.
Why?
Well, it's a long way around, but it sure saved our hides.
How?
Take a look.
They're stopping. The boundary line. We've made it into neutral territory. Does that mean we're safe?
Another day's travel, we ought to be in Boonesboro.
All right, Mr. Boone.
Here and now?
Here and now, Mr. Boone.
Why don't you take a little time and get your breath?
Oh, I am sufficiently recovered, thank you. Besides, it will help to balance the advantage of my obvious youth. I mean to be very fair about this, you see.
Oh? Well, what's going to balance my advantage in size?
My superior skill. Mr. Boone, I hate to do this, but my code demands satisfaction.
I see. Well, what if I tell you I don't know how to fight your style?
That's exactly what I'm counting on, Mr. Boone. It's no good trying to talk your way out of it. I insist on teaching you a lesson.
Would it make any difference if I told you I don't want to fight you?
Well, you were quite willing before when you struck me without warning.
Well, you know why I did that, David.
Mr. Boone, I have no intention of changing my mind. We will fight until one of us is unable to rise to his feet.
What a waste when we have so far to travel. Why don't I just apologize and we'll let it go at that?
Don't patronize me, Mr. Boone. You defend yourself. You will see that brute force is no match for the science of fisticuffs. Science, Mr. Boone, the wave of the future.
Well, I reckon so, David, but we're not in the future yet.
see, David hasn't changed.
Oh, you mean the painting?
I hoped he'd give up that nonsense, but I suppose it was too much to ask. I spent the better part of 20 years spoiling him. I couldn't expect a few short months to make any difference.
You would be expecting too much, wouldn't it?
Well, at least I made the effort. Still, it wasn't very fair of me to wish him off on you and Dan. David!
Hello, Father.
It's good to see you, boy. You look wonderful, son.
Well, you look pretty good yourself.
And all dressed up in buckskins. That's something I thought I'd never see.
Yes, well, I found out that they wear a little better than satins and lace.
What are you doing with that bearskin?
He shot it. I helped him skin it out. We're gonna make a rug for Mom.
Father, I'd like you to meet Israel Boone.
Pleasure to meet you, sir.
How do you do, Israel?
Me and David are hunting partners.
Bill,
Dan, you've done a wonderful job with him. Thank you.
there's nothing to thank me for.
David saved Pa's life, too. Fighting with the Indians.
He saved your life?
That's right. Where's your luggage?
Oh, it's at the tavern.
Well, nonsense. You're going to stay here with us.
Nothing I'd like better, Dan, but I have to be on board a ship for Boston in a week. How soon can you be ready to leave, son?
Well, Father, I hate to leave a job half finished.
A job?
We're building a cabin. Might take a while to finish, but then the trapping season will start.
You mean you want to stay here?
Well, at least through the winter, anyway. It's pointless to learn something and then not put it to use, isn't it?
I think you're serious.
I am.
But what about your painting, your education?
Well, I can use that education. Somebody should be writing a history of the frontier. One day, this will all be gone. Father, you can help me. You send me some supplies from Salem, and I can keep track of it on canvas, too.
You haven't said anything, Dan.
Well, I reckon you know what I'm bound to say. I think it's a fine idea.
Besides, David said he'd teach me how to paint. That'll take a while.
I knew it was too good to be true. You better watch him, Dan. You'll be making a dandy out of Israel, too.